Okay, here we go. All right, everyone, welcome to another class. Class number six. Number six in our Parshat series, Parshat Toldot, and today we're going to talk about being nice. For me, it's an abstract concept because I'm not a nice guy. Because you know what they say about nice people? Finish last.
Yes.
He's not a nice guy, I'll tell you.
Not a nice guy.
We
Okay.
finished class today, and I got a doctor's appointment at 1:30. He says, you gotta help me put the sign up.
Yeah. What do you mean? Of course.
Not a nice guy.
You guys saw the sign on the way in?
Yeah, we saw the sign on the way in.
All right. Very
Did
good.
you
Okay.
rent out the place already?
Well, let's keep it.
Well,
For
the
the
only reason
recording.
I ask is because it used the sign.
So the question we're going to talk about today is it always okay to be kind? Sometimes should we not be kind? And when in doubt, which side do we err? On the side of kindness, on the side of stringency. So I'll tell you a story, and this is the question. It's connected to the question for discussion on page 92. Is it nice to give money to a drug addict? So I'll tell you a story. I was in New York, and I was in the pizza store. And there was a guy who comes over to me. He was a class older than me, growing up in school. We went to the same school, all the years. I knew him. His name is Shmuley. And he comes over to me, and he asks me for money. So I say, yeah, sure. I give $10, $20. I don't know. And I live. I haven't been here. I haven't been in Brooklyn for a long time, so I don't really know what's going on in the neighborhood. So later on, I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, hey, the craziest thing happened. The guy we know, growing up, Shmuley walked over to me in the pizza store, and he asked me for money. I felt bad for him because I had no idea he was going through a hard time. So my friend Sruli says to me, you gave him money? I'm like, yeah, of course I gave him money. A friend of yours asked him money. No, what are you, an idiot? I'm like, what? Don't you know he's on drugs? I'm like, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? No, you can't give him money. He'll go and buy money. He'll go and buy drugs with that money. So this is the question for discussion on page 92. When you give the guy money, or like the guy's standing on the side of the highway, why lie and eat a bear? Right? When you give the guys money, and you're being nice, is it okay to be nice to the drug addict?
Yeah, if you can be nice to him without giving him the drugs, of the ability to get them.
True.
He said,
Somebody-
No, nice meaning over here. Is it nice to give money to a drug addict? Doesn't mean nice over here. You see, look at the question. The word nice is in quotation marks.
No.
Is it nice to give money to a drug addict?
No, because you're contributing to his lies.
Okay, so you say no. You say
I could give him a hot pastrami sandwich.
our policy in Chabad, whenever people call us for money, we don't give money. We'll buy them a gift card. We'll help pay a FPL bill, but we don't give cash because
You don't know where it's going.
are you right?
I think it's the circumstances.
Circumstance. Michael J.
Yes, it's nice to give the money.
Nice to give the money. Okay.
It's nice to receive, huh?
No, it's nice to give the money too. I have the experience of having somebody panhandle from me in front of a restaurant, me going to get a cup of coffee, and on my way back, he was sitting on the sidewalk because they wouldn't let him sit inside, but he had his meal.
No, we're talking about
And
a drug
it's-
addict. Oh, so you're saying
I have no idea what this guy's problem was.
right? Okay. Now, next question for discussion, right? So the first question, you're doing something nice, but you're not sure. Maybe it's the wrong thing to do because you might be aiding and abetting a bad habit. The next question is, what if you're unsure? Should I give? Should I not give?
It's a bad habit.
Right? To exercise, you're not sure if you should exercise discipline or discretion. Give freely or indiscriminately. Be kind or be measured.
Yes to all of those.
So let's say page 92. Let's say you have a friend, and this Mr. Friend, by the way, this cake in this box is dairy. So if anyone had meet for dinner. Don't eat this one here. This one's theirs. Let's say you have a friend, and your friend wants to borrow money, and you remember, obviously he forgot, but you didn't, that he borrowed money from you once already, and he didn't pay you back, and now he wants to borrow money again. So the question is, do you lend him money again? Do you say, hey, you didn't pay me back last time? So you're not sure. I mean, could be I'll pay you back for both. What's the right thing to do? All right, let's get into our parsha and
Get a contract.
Got a contract.
Sign a contract.
Unfortunately,
Not worth the paper it's written on.
unfortunately, the contract doesn't necessarily mean it's
Yeah,
enforceable.
if you both sign it, it's a legal and binding document. You can take them to court.
Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, here we
There
go.
goes your friendship.
You ever try and get blood from a turnip?
So question number one is it nice to give money to drug addict? And here, let's get into the parsha. So this week's parsha starts off with a very, very interesting and superfluous verse.
Nothing superfluous.
Well, it's seemingly superfluous.
We don't
And
want you to contradict yourself.
thank you. It starts off like this: that these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram, which is many times it says when the Torah wants to tell you what the story of this person, so it tells you these are the generations, and then it says Avram begot Yitzchak. So obviously, the obvious question is, why does we know that Avram fathered Yitzchak, and it just told us these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. So why does it repeat itself in the second half of the verse saying that Avram fathered Yitzchak? So we got to go back in history just a little bit. Avram and Sarah were married for many, many years. Didn't have children. So if you remember from Parshat Lech Lecha a couple of weeks ago, Sarah was taken by Parai, and the whole series of events. Parai returned Sarah to Avram. Avram leaves Egypt. A similar event happened when they were living in the land of Canaan. Instead, the king of the land of Canaan was the man, or the Plishtim, the Philistines, was a man named Avimelech. That was his name, that was his title, Avimelech. Avimelech,
Is that Nimrod?
no, Nimrod's up north.
Okay.
This is the Philistines. Nimrod is the Assyrians, more north. So Avimelech kidnaps Sarah. Again, God protects Sarah. Avimelech can't come close to her. But very soon afterward, Sarah becomes pregnant. So now what did everyone on the street corners were saying? What was the rumor in the market? All these years that Sarah was with Avram, she couldn't have kids. So obviously when Avimelech kidnapped Sarah, took Sarah, so obviously the kid is not Avram's. Obviously the kid is Avimelech's, because all these years they never had children. Mitamol, all of a sudden, Sarah becomes pregnant. That was the rumor on page 6.
But he fathered
Several other children afterwards.
what the
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Ishmael.
no Ishmael was
Ishmael
that's
before.
was
Ishmael before. Yeah, but with Sarah, yeah. I'm just saying what the rumor is. So look at text 1b. What did Abish do? What did God do? God makes a miracle. That originally Yitzchak was gonna look different, so to speak. But in order to do away with these people who were slandering Avram and Sarah, he made Yitzchak look like Avram. This way, no one can say that Yitzchak came from a different father, they came from Avimelech. So Yitzchak and Avram looked very much alike. Everyone said that. Now, by the way, some people say there was a rumor going, this is last week's parasha, was also a rumor going around that this wasn't Sarah's kid either. Some people say it wasn't Sarah's kid. She just picked up a kid, at the fire station. And
at the
in those boxes,
what do they call those places for the puppies?
Grocery store.
the grocery store. Yeah, very good. Right, in the Humane Society. And
The one.
right, so actually, when Yitzchak was born, in order to prove that Yitzchak was her child, she nursed Yitzchak and she nursed a bunch of other babies to prove that she was able to have children. But obviously that was the rumor. I mean, I guess understandably so. So now we have a few questions that are going to happen. Why did it take a miracle to make Isaac look like his father? Don't kids usually look like their father? Right? Kids usually look like their mother or their
Halvesies.
father.
Yeah,
Halvesies,
it
right?
depends on the different.
But
genetic
the way
makeup and
the way Rashi makes it sound like it was something out of the blue, and Hashem made this miracle. Well, there's a 50% chance, like my grandmother once told Cyril, I'm 100% before Sarah. I'm 100% sure it's a boy, but if I'm wrong, it's a girl. Thank you. Right.
That reminds me of a
But,
doctor.
well, here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
If there was any question, which obviously there was, that Yitzchak was really not Avram's, then Hashem wanted to just make sure that there would be no doubt, and so he went ahead and made him look like Avram.
Right. Okay. I'm saying, but the way he makes it sound is as if Yitzchak was supposed to look like totally something else, and then Hashem made a miracle. I mean, it's not really. If you meet a kid that looks like his parents, you say, "Wow, what a miracle." No, kids. Most of the time, kids do look like their parents.
Maybe she was abducted by aliens, and Hashem said, that ain't
There you
gonna
go. I already guessed the answer. Class over.
Yep.
Let's go to the game.
Briefly, the obstetrician would tell the woman she's gonna have a girl and write down on the paperwork, it's a boy.
What?
Yeah, no matter what happened, either
was right.
what he said verbally or what he wrote down, one of them's gotta be right.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, all right.
got a 50-50 chance.
Or Abraham looked like the other guy, the king.
Avimelech? No. Not already.
Which brings up a whole other question, if that was the case.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So,
it's weird.
so we see. So, why was it necessary that Hashem had to change, like so to speak, change the rules, break the rules of nature? So, I mean, to get involved, that Yitzchak should look like Avraham. Obviously, there's something more going on over here. It's not. So it's time to get Kabbalistic. Ready?
That's why we're here. Go for it.
Okay. So.
No, I'm only here for the cookies.
And you haven't had one yet.
I know.
Because the class is so amazing, she's distracted. All right. So also, by the way, it doesn't say that Avram resembled Yitzchak. It specifically says Yitzchak resembled Avram. There's a reason for that. We're going to get into that. Okay. So for those of us who have been studying Tanya, we know the Alter Rebbe writes in chapter 3 that a person's soul is divided into two separate potential. You have intellect and you have emotions. Intellect is Chabad, Chacham Yudadas. Emotions are usually divided into two camps because the rest of the emotions stem really from these two. You have Chesed on the right and you have Gvura on the left. In one corner. What's Chesed? Chesed means kindness. Chesed means the desire to give, the desire to love, the desire to connect, outgoing. Gevura means discipline, withdrawal, introvert, to hold back, measured. The two opposites. Kabbalah explains that Avram personified Chesed. Right? We know that Avram had a tent at all four sides. Avram was a very loving, giving person. Avram supplied people with food in the desert. Everybody loves Avram. That's why there's so many stories with Avram. Because Avram's always going places, talking to people. You sit at home, you read about Yitzchak. Yitzchak doesn't lead a very exciting life. Right? Yitzchak marries Rivka. He has, in this week's parsha, he has a little argument over the wells. We have the story with the blessings, right? In this week's parsha, we have the blessings of Yaakov and Esav, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's really Yaakov and Esav. It's not so much Yitzchak. Mm-hmm. What happens with Yitzchak? Last week's parsha, we learned about Yitzchak's wife, Rivka, right? Mm-hmm. This week's parsha, we learned that Yitzchak prayed and Rivka became pregnant, Yaakov and Esav were born. Because why? Because Yitzchak is gevura, withdrawal in himself. Yitzchak is discipline, measured, law.
Yeah, but his name means laughter.
So, what's one thing to do with the other?
Nothing, I guess.
The gevura doesn't mean that you can't laugh.
True. But usually a person who's withdrawn like that usually doesn't laugh that much.
Oh,
We're talking introvert, extrovert.
maybe he laughs inside. Or like Jackie Mason. Like Jackie Mason on stage when cracked up laughing. He said, I told myself a better joke than I told you."
Okay.
So let's look at how the Alter Rebbe explains Chesed and Gevurah. Text 2 is a very general, broad explanation Alter Rebbe gives. Now, it's important to note that Chesed and Gevurah, which are the prototypes of emotion, it's explained in various places in Kabbalah and in almost every Maimer, Sicha, or discourse in Chassidus mentions Chesed and Gevurah. So we're learning here in text 2 is very, very general. So let's look at it. There are two approaches when it comes to serving Hashem. One is what's called the left side. Gevurah is called the left side, and which is associated with restraint and obstruction. This approach fuels the service of a God that is limited and constrained, such as giving charity only according to one's means, and not splurging on more than a set amount of one's income. Similarly, such a person is measured in the Torah study, dedicating only the amount of time necessary to discharge their obligation, namely the fixed times explicitly prescribed in the Torah. By contrast, an approach from the right side is associated with generosity and uninhibited expansiveness. There is no obstruction or inhibition to this person's generosity or spirit. Whether it is in the matters of charity or Torah study, they aren't satisfied with simply discharging their obligation, but rather carrying on with no restraint. So here we have chesed. Chesed is just to give. Gevurah means I have to think about it. Every person, we're like learning in Tanya, every person has all 10 character traits, 10 faculties, 10 interfaces, whichever word you want to use for it. Some people personify or exhibit one more than the other. It's not that you have one and you don't have the other. We're not talking about a psychopath over here can't feel compassion.
Hey, who are you calling a psychopath? You said over here, so.
I mean, over here.
He was pointing in that direction.
Exactly.
I felt it.
Exactly. So every person has, and every person can utilize a different part of the character trait. But usually, you behave according to your character, right? That doesn't mean you can't act out of character. So Avram usually was Chesed. Yitzchak was usually Gevurah. So let's go back a couple parshias. Why was the binding of Isaac on the altar such a big deal? There's a few reasons, but one of the reasons given is that Avram was a very nice guy by nature, and God asked him to do something terrible. To sacrifice another person for God and his own son. So God wanted to see, is Avram serving him out of character? I mean, just out of his character traits, meaning because he's comfortable, he's serving God because it suits him that way, or is he serving God because he's serving God? So let's say it's a mitzvah to eat in the sukkah. Now let's say it's a mitzvah to eat in the sukkah the first night of Sukkot. So when it's not raining, and it's comfortable, and the air conditioner and the lights are on, no problem. So, but the question is, are you doing the mitzvah for you, or are you doing the mitzvah for him? The question is, what happens if it's raining, and one air conditioner is off, right? And it's the first night of Sukkot. Now we separate, like the saying goes, the men from the boys, right?
Been there, done that.
Been there. So this is what the Elimelech of Lezhensk, who was a colleague of the Alter Rebbe. He's buried in Lezhensk, which is a town in Poland. And Moshe Hashem, if we get a chance to go on a trip, we're gonna go there. And he says in text number 38 on page 96, these are the generations of Isaac, the son of Avram. That Isaac was the prototype of discipline, and Avram is a prototype of generosity, as is well known. And the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's son of Dave Bear, explains like this because they expand. It says in Koheles, it says in Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, his left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. So the left hand under my head is Isaac, whose elements of discipline are associated with the left side. Avram is a vehicle for generosity, which is associated with the right. So, is any one the answer? Are you supposed to be absolutely generous or absolutely disciplined?
You should be disciplined with your generosity.
Very well said. Have a cookie.
I already had one.
All right. That's meaning undisciplined generosity is not good. If a kid comes over to you and asks you, "Can you play with matches?" and you give it to him, that's a problem, right? And if you can't have compassion on somebody, because let's go back a Parshat, okay? Why was Sodom so bad? No, we all know that God should destroy Sodom. You ever ask yourself why, or you just thought to yourself, "I don't know, God probably knows what He's doing."
That one.
Right? I'm going to question God. Yeah, sure.
They put cheese on their ham sandwich. It was not allowable.
Exactly. There you go. It wasn't Chol of Yisrael cheese either.
No.
Yeah.
They just did not follow the mitzvahs.
But they didn't have mitzvahs.
They didn't have the mitzvahs or the Torah. But
They had the 7 Noahide laws.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they weren't following those either.
So-
they were nasty to each other.
Well, in what way? So the Medrash says something very interesting.
They were thieves.
Well,
No?
It says they believed in God. They believe in God very, very rigidly. If God wants you to have it, you'll have it. If you don't have it, obviously God doesn't want you to have it, so I'm not going to help you. So when a poor person comes to town, who am I to help you? If God wanted you to be hungry, you'll be hungry. Now, that is unbridled, unchecked discipline. And that's not the way it works. So either one extreme or the other, in general, like Maimonides says, you ever read the beginning of Maimonides where he talks about the human behavior, and it's very interesting. Maimonides talks about character traits and diet. You ever read it? The beginning it's very interesting. Reading the beginning of Maimonides, it talks about belief in God. This talks about character traits. Maimonides lays out, you should know, a lifestyle, diet, exercise, and he says if you follow my regiment, a person will never get sick. I'll just die of old age. Maimonides was a man of very strong conviction. Like he also said, you don't need the Gemara. You read the Chumash and the Torah, come straight to my book. No more commentary necessary. I mean, we're talking about a man with big shoulders. Anyway.
Ego.
No. Chas v'shalom. Don't say that.
Ego?
Don't say that. You're crazy.
Well, that's why I'm trying to find
No, he knew what he was talking about, and he's right. Again, from Moshe to Moshe, there stood no one like Moshe. The Rambam was on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe didn't have ego. No, but he was saying that because what did Rambam do? I know it's getting off subject. Rambam, instead of having a student run all over the place because Mishnah and Gemara jumping from one topic to the other, he said, "Listen, I'm doing you a favor. Everything is organized perfectly." And Rambam doesn't use 3 words when he can use 2. And everything is organized, color-coded, and every topic flows into the other. It's the most beautifully written book after the Mishnah. It goes Torah, Mishnah, Rambam. That order of how greatest books ever. And then Tanya. Yeah, no, the Rambam didn't have ego. All right. And he did it by the way.
Shades of gray doesn't come in there at all.
Huh? What do you say?
Shades of gray.
Okay. And I'm guessing that. Yeah. Okay. So now, what happens? Getting back to our subject at hand. What happens when you have undisciplined kindness, or rigid discipline? So then, when you could be a nice guy, or you could be a proper person, but the result of it is not going to be good. So we were talking about this Hanukkah. Only one. I think I mentioned this. I mentioned this to you. Only one of the 5 Maccabee sons survived. I think the war was 12 years or something. Only one survived. Now, Judaism believes in the separation of power. Way before the United States government instituted it, Judaism, it's in the Torah. There's a Kohen Gadol and there's a king. Kohen is from the tribe of Levi. King is from the tribe of Yehuda. 2 separate branches of government. There's a reason for that. But after the story of Hanukkah, the last remaining Maccabee son, Shimon, made himself king, as well as a Kohen. And the rabbis were very upset, but because the situation in the country was so precarious, think of it as 1948, right after the War of Independence, right? The government was so fragile then, it wasn't a time to make a big upheaval. So the rabbis were okay with it. I mean, not okay with it. They made peace with it. Shimon wasn't the problem. What? Yeah.
Tolerated it.
But you know what happened? Shimon wasn't the problem. Shimon was a good guy. But you know what happened? Shimon's son wasn't Shimon. And then we have problems. And there are many stories like this in history where, yeah, you're a good guy. So let's give a more modern example. Moses Mendelssohn. You know who Moses Mendelssohn is? Moses Mendelssohn is the father of Reform Jewry. And he was a religious person. Moses Mendelssohn writes in his diary, he never missed davening with a minyan. Not only Shachos Mincha Ma'ariv. And he came up with an idea, which is you could be a religious Jew at home, but outside you act like the Gentiles. So maybe for him, he can balance the 2 worlds, but it's his personal thing. For most people, they can't. They got to make a choice, one or the other. So you have Avram, and Avram was chesed to an extreme. Yes, Avram could incorporate gevura, discipline, when he needed to, but more often than not, Avram was unbridled kindness, uninhibited kindness. What happens to a kid when you're just giving, never say no? What happens to the kid?
Becomes a spoiled brat.
Who comes from Avram? No? Who comes from Avram?
Ishmael.
Ishmael. What's Ishmael? Give me. Never enough. Give me. Here, take a piece of land. No, I don't want a piece of land. I want the whole land. Never satisfied. Kabbalah says the Bnei Ishmael, I know we got garbage cans. Bnei Ishmael are known for their the inability to satisfy their desire. They always desire more. Look at what the Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch, the third Chabad Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, writes. Ishmael is the archetype of unholy generosity, possessing an insatiable spirit of expansiveness. As the verse says about him, his hand is in everything, and everything is in his hand. Means that his hand is in everything, as he needs everything. In other words, he is very needy, and the opposite of the one who is content with what they have. So now, that means the Avram is wrong, and Yitzchak's right. Right? What happens when let's talk about Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the other extreme. Discipline. What happens when you always tell your kid no? Everything no. No. What happens?
He stops asking.
He rebels.
Who comes
Who comes from no? He acts out. And the problem is when everything is no, then eating a cookie and lighting a house on fire, it's all the same no, because he hasn't learned the difference between the 2. Who comes from Yitzchak? Esav. Well, Yaakov and Esav. What Esav? Esav is unbridled rage, just uncontrollable, right? And we find what Esav invented, terrible ways to hurt people, because it was just anger inside of him, burning red anger. So who's right? Avram or Yitzchak? Another answer is they're both right, obviously, right? You have to have Avram mixed with Yitzchak mixed with Avram. So now the question is, which side should we more Avram? I mean, should we incorporate Yitzchak into Avram, or incorporate Avram into Yitzchak? Do we incorporate Gvura into Chesed, or Chesed into Gvura? Or in English, do we incorporate discipline into kindness, or temper the discipline with kindness? Did I say it too fast?
I think it depends on the situation.
No, the question is, what should your status quo be?
Status quo.
Temper discipline with kindness.
Okay. So incorporate Yitzchak's standard and incorporate Avram into Yitzchak.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, there has to be discipline,
No one.
but how you disperse it becomes the issue. So if you disperse discipline with kindness, it's more apt to be taken properly
Right.
without pushback.
So going back to the second question we asked at the beginning of the class.
More than it hurts you.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
There's a story like that. You ever heard of this? I never told you guys the story of Yitzchak Show? No, I'll tell you the story. Tell you a story in a second. So basically, one second, get back to Barbara for a second. So in the question we asked in the beginning of the class, if you're not sure to distribute or to withhold, you say withhold. Because if hold the thought. Let's. I'm not trying to stump you. I'm saying we're going through.
Okay.
The reason why we are this way is because our soul comes from God, right? And God, the way we explain this in Tanya, there's God and godliness, and the godliness encompasses all these things: wisdom, understanding, knowledge on the intellect side, and the chesed and the gevurah. So you might be a person that's kind because your soul comes from the arena of chesed. And you might be a more disciplined person because your soul comes from Kavura. So, for example, in the book of Leviticus of Vayikra, there's a law that only a Kohen can proclaim a person impure if they're a leper, if they're Mitzvah. Now, Kabbalah asks, why only a Kohen? What if I'm an expert and I'm not a Kohen? No, only a Kohen. So, I mean, without going through all the questions, but basically it's because a Kohen's soul is rooted in chesed. Before you banish a person, you kick him out of the camp, you have to make sure you're doing it from kindness. So a Kohen's soul comes from chesed. But there's another story with Al-Shech. Al-Shech was a student, he's buried in Tveria, which is Shemagore, right next to the Rambam, actually. So he was a student of the Arizal. And every time the Arizal gave a class, he fell asleep. And it bothered him. He asked the Arizal, how come I always fall asleep? He says, because your soul is rooted in halacha. I'm talking Kabbalah. So, you lose it. He actually wrote a great book, a halachic work. So you have very famous rabbis who looked at the world in different ways, and that reflected how they handed down halachic rulings. You have Hillel and Shammai, or the school of Hillel. The truth is, Hillel and Shammai didn't argue. The school of Hillel and the school of Shammai argued. But why were they in the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai? Because Hillel, their souls were rooted in kindness. So they looked at the world through that. I mean, you can only look at the world based on your character. To go back to a sports analogy, right? One guy's this fan, one guy's not fan. Oh, it was a foul. Oh, it wasn't a foul. He was out. He was safe, right? I mean,
you get that all the time now in football because they've perfected the cameras and everything to do instant replay.
right.
And the game seems like they made it longer by reviewing almost every other play.
Well, let's say before the camera, right? Before the camera, in the good old days when you argued and you had no way of proving it, right?
Yeah.
Or the replay was that grainy, stuff, right?
You couldn't really tell when
Right,
the
and
guy's
you had-
foot was on
And
the
you had
line
John
or in
Madden.
the field.
You had John Madden scribbling on the screen. Also, it only made it worse. But right, meaning your personality, your character is going to view how you judge it. So if let's say a situation comes in front of you, and you are more of a discipline, and this is the letter of the law, this is the way it has to be, you're gonna have less tolerance of somebody who comes up with some cockamamie idea. So for example, a guy comes to you and says, I want to convert. Teach me to hold Torah standing on one leg. If you're a disciplinarian, you're gonna say, really? I'm busting my chops here for 40, 50 years to learn, and you want me to teach you the whole Torah? Get out of here, get out of my office, right? But if you're more of a kind person, you'll say, okay, the guy's head is in the right place. Maybe he doesn't understand. You'll tell him, you know something? I'll tell you what. Well, you don't like to be done to yourself? Don't do to other people. The rest of the Torah is an explanation. That's the story of Hillel and Shammai. Tell Shammai's a bad guy. Shammai's not, Shammai just was, he saw the Torah as this is the way it is. And the Gemara says that ideally Shammai is right. And when Mashiach comes, and our lack of ability to make the correct decision because we have all our distractions. Why does Hillel lenient? Because he deals with the human condition the way we are. Why is Shammai stringent? Because he deals with us the way we should be. But when Mashiach comes and all the barriers to performance of Hashem's Torah is going to be removed, we're going to act the way we should be, like Shammai. Now we're in the exile. We go according to Hillel's. It's not like Hillel's wrong, Shammai. And you should know, by the way, there are some times in the Gemara, there were, I think, 5 or 6 times where the school of Shammai was stringent, and the school of Hillel, was stringent, and the school of Shammai was lenient. Because they didn't, we're always lenient. No. They were generally lenient, but they were able to sometimes mix in the stringency. It's not only is it your character, it also shows on your body language, also shows in your face. The Rebbe says, we see a text number, I skipped an important text. Here we go. Said this. Okay, so yeah, we said that. Here we go. Text number 6 on page 99. So the Rebbe Rashab says, some scholars, they were rooted in Chesed, and some were rooted in Gevura. And that's why Hillel was known for being lenient, Shammai was known for being strict, because Hillel's soul was rooted in Chesed, in loving kindness. Shammai was rooted in discipline, in Gevura. Now all the sages of the Talmud, every sage, these are just the prototypes, but every sage, not only every sage, every person is like that. So, and it doesn't only represent itself in a soul level, it also is portrayed and displayed on how you look. See, the Rebbe says in text number 7, so how you look, a person's face is connected with their character. A generous person has a generous face. A stern person has a sharper face. That's just the way it is. And this is backed up by King Solomon says in Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, he says, who is like a wise person and who knows the meaning of a thing? A person's wisdom makes their face shine, and the boldness of the face changes. I mean, we know when a person's angry, red face. When a person's calm, you can sort of see it on their face, the way they walk, the way they talk, right? the way they act. So now we're going to understand, according to Kabbalah, getting back. We said in the beginning that Hashem made a miracle that Yitzchak should look like Avraham. We're not talking about over here necessarily his physical look. Avraham was Chesed on the right. Yitzchak was Gvur. Too much. Hashem said, no, Yitzchak, we're going to have to mix in. We're going to have to mix in a little bit of Chesed into you. And here we get to the answer to the question. Your prototype or your status quo should be Chesed, mixed in with Gevurah. That means when you're in doubt, be kind. So will you be wrong sometimes? Yeah. So I'll tell you a story. This story is told by a chassid. His name is Moshe Naparstik. So Rabbi Moshe Naparstik, he worked in yeshiva. And when you work in yeshiva with young boys, sometimes the boys act out. So there were people in the faculty that says, we gotta lay down the law. We gotta show him who's boss. And he always was on the side that, you gotta go lenient, go easy. And there was one time that this kid did something very bad. It doesn't say exactly what he did something very bad. And if some of the people in the faculty says, we gotta kick him out of yeshiva, we gotta kick him out of school. He said, no, come on, give him another chance. And there was a raging debate amongst the staff. Some guy said, you gotta kick him out. So this Rabbi Moshe the Parshat says that he would go into meet the Rebbe twice a year. I think it was Shavuos time and around Sukkot time or Simchas Torah, around there. And usually when he came, he only spoke of personal matters. He didn't speak about things at the school because he wasn't the dean. It wasn't his business. So he decided he's going to write it down and he's going to ask. But then when he was in the room, he said, nah. He decided he's not going to. He thought better. The Rebbe answered his questions, and he got up to leave. And as he was about to leave, the Rebbe said, as a general principle, he said about education, being accepting and kind has always been the more successful approach. But in our times, kindness is the only way to succeed, and you should have blessing. And he was like shocked because he didn't say that. He didn't tell the Rebbe the question. He didn't hand the Rebbe a note. But he came back and told them, and he said, these guys are all, good guys, religious, have nice families and everything else. Sometimes we feel the urge, but when you're not sure, especially in our generation, I'll tell you a couple more stories. I heard the story from Beryl Wine. Beryl Wine, the Jewish historian. He has a lot of history classes, very nice classes. He tells a story. I can't remember exactly what class he gives it that. He grew up in Chicago. He's born in the 30s, and imagine, the Cubs. I think the Cubs won against Cleveland a few years ago. The Cubs hadn't won since 1909, right? But the Cubs went to the World Series in the 40s. Might have been against Cleveland also. And they won. No, they didn't go. They went and they lost. But in order to get tickets, the guys got tickets. So there was a yeshiva boy who got tickets and wanted to turn around and make a quick dollar. So he was scalping the tickets, and his bad luck, he sold them to a cop and he was arrested. And it was a big chil Hashem, it was a big desecration of God's name, because in the paper it didn't just say, some guy. It said an Orthodox yeshiva boy was arrested for scalping tickets. And one guy in the yeshiva said, well, he made a big embarrassment for the yeshiva. Gotta kick him out. And one guy said, relax. Okay, he made a mistake. And he says, just today, this guy, he has a nice family and everything else. Another story, also I think in the 30s or 40s, this kid, this bacher, was caught smoking on Shabbos.
What was he smoking?
Cigarettes.
Oh.
This is the 30s. You guys didn't do it yet.
Well, that stuff
It was
there.
still around.
I know.
Oh, they had way back then too.
Not in the Jewish community. No.
Not that you know.
No. Anyway,
You weren't there.
so
you
the
don't really know.
so the guy who was in charge of disciplining yeshiva was kicking him out of yeshiva. So the rabbi says, "Why are you kicking him out of yeshiva?" He says, "Why am I kicking out of yeshiva? He desecrated Shabbos. You're smoking on Shabbos. What do you mean?" He says, "And who says that smoking on Shabbos means you kick out of yeshiva?" It's like, "Are you crazy? A boy that doesn't keep Shabbos, we're going to keep him in the yeshiva?" So he says, if he stays, I leave. So the guy says, listen, you want to leave. You're welcome to go, but we're not going to kill this boy. His souls, kick him out because he made a mistake. And the guy, he remained in the yeshiva, and he raised a nice family. So the point is like this. Obviously, at times you gotta have discipline, and yes, and the times you can't just give in every time. But generally speaking, especially in our days, maybe in the olden days, people were more subservient to nature. They listened to authority more. So you told them, and they were okay with it. But these days, you have to. We find more and more and more that we have to treat people with kindness. Yeah, sometimes you got to temper it. Sometimes you have to. you have to, know when to say no and everything else. But we find, and Chabad is following the Rebbe's example in the past 50, 60 years, that look how much good work Chabad has done. Going back, let's say, to the 6-Day War, when the Rebbe said, put tefillin on people, on everybody, and the guy said, what are you going to put tefillin on this shegets? This guy who is going to the club and who knows what he's eating and who knows who he's dating, you're going to tefillin on that guy? How could you? The Rebbe said, you put tefillin, because you start doing good with this guy. You show him that you love him no matter what, and it'll bring him back. There was someone told me a story recently that when she was younger, she didn't really get a strong Jewish education. She didn't know about keeping Shabbos. She didn't know about keeping kosher. Not because she's bad. She didn't get a Jewish. She knew about it, but one person told her, "You're not Jewish because you don't keep Shabbos. You don't keep kosher." She left the Jewish community. She went married. Someone's not Jewish, because why? And maybe that person thought that, I did my job, because my job is to rebuke. When you see someone doing wrong, you have to tell them. But what we find in our times, positive reinforcement is what works. Look what the Rebbe says in text number 9. He says the message for us is clear. There are certain situations when either approach is valid, either with generosity or restraint. But when in doubt, one should always choose generosity. So why did it take a miracle for Isaac to look like his father? What was the big thing? Because Isaac was disciplined. And we said, no, Yitzchak, you gotta come look like Avram. So is it Avram? So Yitzchak looks like Avram, not Avram looks like Yitzchak. We want to bring Yitzchak into Avram. Yeah, Avram has to have a little bit of discipline. Chesed has to have some discipline. But generally, you always accomplish more. You always accomplish more with kindness. I'll tell you another story. You ever heard about Pesach Kron? He has videos. He tells great stories. Great stories. You can find him online. So he tells a story about a Rosh Yeshiva. His name was Reb David Trenk. David Trenk. What happened was, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, a lot of the rabbis were European immigrants, but the kids were American kids. You know what they would call the American kids? They call them chocolate kids, chocolatiers. They call them, because they were used to all the luxuries. In Russia, in Germany, they didn't have that kind of stuff. But you're dealing with kids that grew up in the city, didn't grow up in the shtetl. So this kid wanted to go see a movie. So he took the rabbi's keys. The rabbi found out about it. He took the rabbi's keys on Shabbos. He drove to the theater, and they went to see a movie. The rabbi found out about it. I don't remember exactly how. He walked a few miles to the theater. He goes in. The lady says, "You want a ticket?" No. I don't need a ticket. One of my students is watching. I just want to go tell him something. So he goes in. He goes into the theater. He finds a student sitting there. He sits down next to him, and he says, "I hope you enjoy the movie. It's only the popcorn here is not kosher." And he gets up and he leaves. Down the block, he feels the guy touch his shoulder. Who is it? The student. The kid never violated Shabbos again. It means when you show loving kindness to somebody, it doesn't mean you overlook it. When you show loving kindness to somebody, you can accomplish a lot more. And that's why we have a lot of questions and answers. But this is what it says when Hillel says, "Be a student of Aaron, love peace, pursue peace, and love all creatures, and bring them closer to Torah." Like the Alter Rebbe says, it doesn't mean love all observant Jews. It says love people, everybody, even somebody who they're only. Because what are you calling them? You're calling them a creature, right? Like the famous line from Fiddler on the Roof, when Chava tells Tevye, so that creature has a name. Oh, he says, stop calling him a creature. He has a name. And Tevye says, of course he has a name. All creatures are God. He calls him that man, whatever it is, that thing, right? So he said, even somebody who we call him a creature because obviously the guy's in a very bad, low state. The Rebbe says, and yet we must pull him with thick ropes of love, perhaps just maybe, by bringing them closer, when you're showing them love, perhaps we'll bring him back. And worst comes to worst, let's say you love a guy and you show him kindness and he doesn't come back to the right path. All right, so you did the mitzvah of loving your fellow for no reason, for free. You've done a lot worse things, right? So this is the great lesson. This is the great lesson, and you should know, if anything, the past 5 weeks have shown us is that every Jew loves another Jew, and the lessons are rooted. Lessons of love and tolerance are rooted in the Torah. There was just a rally today for 300,000 people, between 250 300,000 people. No, in Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, my son-in-law went with a temple group, and my grandson went with his yeshiva.
Yeah, they sent guys from here. They went all over the place.
Yair was there.
Yeah, the yeshiva went, but there was no fighting, there was no rioting, there was no derogatory. Why?
Did they pick up after themselves?
Right? There's nothing about picking up after yourself in tonight's class. It's about loving kindness. You have to show support for the people, who clean up. But the idea is because when in doubt, you love Hablib. It says like that. Hayim Yom from a couple of days ago said. It says, love another Jew and God will love you. Do a favor for another Jew, God will do you a favor. When in doubt, love and help another person. Only good can come out of it, unless obviously the person is showing that. But when in doubt, love. All right, here we go. Key points. Though they were father and son, Isaac and Abraham didn't look naturally alike. It took a miracle to change that. Kabbalah speaks of several cognitive and emotional attributes. In the latter, the primary two traits of chesed and gevurah, generosity and restraint. Avraham was chesed and kindness, generosity. Yitzchak was restraint, gevurah. Neither trait is good if they're in the extreme, right? You have Yishmael on one side, you have Esav on the other side. You have to be tempered and mix one with the other. That said, each person is encouraged to work with and within the personality trait they possess, right? If you're chesed, you shouldn't try to fight it. That's who you are. If you're an introvert, that's who you are. These traits are coded into your soul. The soul traits stem from the mirror image of God, right? Just like God manifests itself in 10 ways, so too we have the soul. They impact how we think and how we look and how we act. Thus, Avraham and Yitzchak naturally did not look like each other, and due to their divergent souls, it took a miracle to change that. That Hashem, we said Hashem changed Isaac, not changed Avraham. The reason is Hashem changes Isaac, his father, not the other way around, because when faced with either option, kindness or restraint, a chesed, a gevurah, it's always best to choose chesed. Any questions? Comments? Cheer? Complaints? You can keep to yourself. Yeah.
Who's this fella, Abraham, you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
In this week's Parshat, it mentions twice over, it mentions that Isaac was Abraham's son.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the class.
Yeah,
That,
and it was because that they looked so alike.
we said that Hashem made Yitzchak look like Avram. But why? Because Yitzchak was too much. Michael J, do you mind hitting the record button? All right, everyone, have a good week.